So now that we've aligned our vise, now we're ready to go ahead and load our part. We've went and changed the vise jaws from a set of standard jaws to a set of gripper jaws. So these look slightly different than the one in the previous video. What these allow you to do is they create a small step that you can place your part down in, and very low profile grippers then grab your part. Now what makes it important for your part is that you make sure that your part is completely deburred. That means that all your edges are deburred, and it also means that your part needs to be flat. So make sure that you file the bottom of the part and all the edges to make sure that it sits flat inside the vise. Make sure your part's clean before you place it in the machine. Again, any dirt on your part or any dirt in the machine could cause your Z-axis to be off. Now that my part has been prepped, I can go ahead and place it in the vise. Again, you just want it to be down inside these little jaws here. So not a lot, but make sure that you can move it front and backwards and that it's free. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. So I'm going to take my vise wrench. I'm going to hold it down with my other hand, and then I'm just going to let the vise do the work. Okay? We don't need to get the hammer. We don't need to do anything else. That's more than enough to hold your part in position. Okay? One little tap with the palm of your hand is more than enough. So what I do is I go until it stops, and then I tap it with my hand. That's all that you need to do. This part is not coming out unless something drastically bad happens. Okay? So part's in. Now we're ready to go ahead and load our first tool. So our first tool is a face mill. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this face mill to cut the top of this part off. What we're doing with that operation is we're creating a nice flat surface for us to set all of our tools off of. Okay? So, as before, close the doors, go to MDI mode, type in M19, hit enter, and then hit cycle start. Spindle has been oriented. We can go ahead and open the doors. And just like before, again, the part of the tool, again, this tool has a little drilled hole featured on one side. We want to turn the tool 180 degrees. And so the part that is not machined is pointing out. Remember, we're only using long pull studs also, no short pull studs in the Haasas. Press the button, gently push the tool up, release the button, and make sure that the machine has a good hold of it before you let go. Okay? Now that we've placed the tool in the machine, now we're ready to face the top of the part off. So what I want to do is I need to get that tool spinning. So I need to set the spindle speed for that tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. We're still in MDI mode. You can hit MDI if you're unsure. And go ahead and delete everything. So MDI is always clean before you ever put any codes in there. And what we want to do is we want to set that face mill to about 1500 RPMs. So there's a couple codes in there that we're going to learn about in lecture, but I'm going to go over right now. The first one is S. S means spindle speed. Then we're going to put in the amount. In this case, it's 1500. 1500. And then finally, we're going to put an M3. And M3 means that the spindle is going to turn clockwise. 99.9% of the tools that you use will be M3 tools. You will not use the M4 unless it's specifically for a left-hand tool. Okay? Now that that's inputted, we can go ahead and hit enter. And we can go ahead and hit cycle start. Now, right now, the spindle is going at 1500 RPMs, as shown here by the main spindle window. I can change the spindle speed by hitting the spindle minus or hitting the spindle plus. I can also set the spindle back to 100% by hitting the 100% spindle button. So we want to make sure that we're set at 1500 RPMs. We want to make sure that we are at 100% spindle before we start cutting. Okay? Now, If I come over here and I open up the doors, the spindle speed actually changes. The reason for that is for safety reasons. With the doors open, the spindle will not turn faster than 750 RPMs. So when we're edge finding, we'll use 750 RPMs, but when we're facing, we are a little bit faster. So during this process, we need to make sure that the spindle is at 100%. So I'm going to do this demonstration with the doors open. Remember, I'm going to close the doors before I start doing my first cuts. Open the doors, go to handle jog, go to Z 10,000ths, and go ahead and bring the spindle down. Bring it down within about an inch of the top of your part. Now I can go ahead and move the Y-axis. And I want the face mill just to be off to the side. In this case, I'm putting it at the upper right-hand corner of my part. And I'm going to move it over an X just a little bit, just so it's off the side of my part. Now, the next part of this becomes very important, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to touch off my part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it within about a half an inch of my part. I'm going to go ahead and close my doors. I'm going to go ahead and hit 100% spindle. You'll notice that the spindle speed goes back up to 1500. And now I'm going to go Z 1000. And what I want you to do is just slowly bring that tool down until it touches the top of your part. So you should be able to see this, and you should be able to hear it right there. So what I saw was I saw some chips come off the back of the face mill. I also heard the face mill touch the part. Okay? Now I'm going to go X, and I'm going to go ahead and move the face mill off my part. Okay? Go ahead and stop the spindle. So there's a spindle forward, there's a spindle stop, and there's a spindle reverse button on the pendant. Go ahead and hit spindle stop. Open the doors. And again, you should see a nice area on the upper right-hand corner of your part that has been machined off. We are now going to go ahead and jog across the top of our part until that part is clean. If it doesn't clean up, your part might be bowed, your part might have some crown in it, your part might not be flat. We'll just have to go a little bit deeper than we are. Okay. So we've come down and we've touched the top of our part, and now we're ready to go ahead and face the top of it off. Before we go any further, because our next step is to go ahead and load tools, let's go ahead and clear out all the tool offsets for any of the tools that are currently in the machine. You'll notice that here we have an offsets page, and currently it's highlighted to tool. If I go up and over, it takes me to work. We want to make sure that tool is highlighted. So we can go ahead and arrow down, and you'll notice that tool 1 is in the spindle. That's our face mill. Tool 1 is our face mill. What I want to do is I want to make sure all the offsets in here are cleared out. Even if you don't see anything up here, there might be offsets down at the bottom of the table. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and hit origin, and we want to go ahead and arrow down until it says clear tool offsets. Go ahead and hit enter. It's going to ask you if you want to. You're going to say yes or Y. And all of the tool tables should be cleared out now. So anything that I said as far as tool length is concerned, we should be fine. So before I start cutting, I want to go ahead and clear my 0 out here to make sure that I know exactly where the top of my part is. So what I can do is I can hit the position button, and I want to arrow over until it says operator. So if I use these arrows here, it moves me over from left to right. So if I'm at program, I hit right 3 times, and it takes me to operator. I then can hit the origin button again, and notice it changes my Z to 0, it changes my Z to 0. I now know where I am in the machine. I just touched off the top of my part with my face mill. I've now set it to 0. If I need to go lower, I now can gauge how far I can go from where I'm at. So if I say I want to cut another 10 thousandths off, this should say minus 0.01 or minus 10 thousandths when I get to that next position. If I don't do this, I won't be able to tell. I could go down an inch and I wouldn't know. Okay, so always set this to 0 before you start cutting anything on your parts. Now we can go ahead and close the doors. We can go ahead and hit our spindle forward button. The spindle is running at 1500 RPMs. And now I can go ahead and jog across. So now that we're at the top of our part and we have the spindle running, again, X, 1 thou. Make sure it says 1 thou right here. Make sure X is highlighted. And now we can go ahead and face the top of our part. Okay? Just turn the hand wheel. Let the machine do the work. Again, if you hear any bad noises or anything else happen within the machine, go ahead and stop and double check everything, but you should be fine. Okay, go ahead and take the hand wheel and just cut the top of your part off. Now, how do you know if you're cutting the top of your part off? It should be nice and shiny. If it's still dull or still silver or what I would call gray color, then you need to go probably a little bit deeper. But check with your instructor, especially your first time. Now what I've done is I've hit the Y, and now I'm moving the cutter forward. And I want to move it about 50%. I hit the X again, and I just do another facing cut. As you get more acclimated and as you get used to running the machines, you'll know how far to move tools over, especially when you're doing stuff manually. In this case, just move it over about half the diameter and make your next cut. So my first cut was from right to left, my second cut was left to right, and now my third cut is going to be from right to left. So again, I hit the Y key, and I move the machine down. Then I hit the X key, and I just move the machine over, and I'm just removing that last little bit of material on the top of the part. Now, if you've gone through this process and the top of your part is shiny, you're done. You can go ahead and we can start setting tools on. If it's not, this is where we would have to drop the tool a little bit. We'd have to lower the tool in the machine a little bit. And I'll go ahead and show you that. So go ahead and keep moving the hand wheel until the tool is completely off the part. Go ahead and hit the stop button. Go ahead and open the doors and inspect your part. Take your brush, clean off the top of your part, clean off the vise, and go ahead and inspect the top of your part. Now, there is going to be a burr around the perimeter of your part. You must be careful of that. So just check the top of your part visually and make sure that it's machined all the way across. If it hasn't, we're going to have to lower the tool a little bit. So, same process as before. We're going to go ahead and close the doors. We're going to go ahead and turn the spindle on forward. I'm going to go to Z, and I'm going to go to 10 thou. So make sure it says 10 thou, and make sure Z is highlighted here. Go ahead and move the hand wheel one click counterclockwise. Remember, counterclockwise is negative, clockwise is positive. So counterclockwise, one click. You'll notice now my Z says minus 10 thou. I've moved it exactly 10 thousandths of an inch. How much is 10 thousandths of an inch? About 2 or 3 pieces of paper. So we're not going to take that much more off the top of this part. And we'll continue doing this until the top of the part is cleaned off.